I never thought I'd find myself in this situation. My name is Mark, and I've been married to Jennifer for 7 years. For the most part, our relationship was solid. We had a comfortable routine, shared friends, and a decent life together. But lately, things felt off. The little signs were there: her late nights at work, the smell of unfamiliar perfume, and the way her phone seemed to always be just out of reach, even when we were together. One evening, we were sitting on the couch, binge-watching a crime series. I was half focused on the show while she scrolled through her phone. Suddenly, she gasped and quickly blocked a number that had just popped up on her screen. "Spam," she said, brushing it off. But her hands were shaking, and that didn't sit right with me. I could feel a knot of unease tightening in my stomach. I tried to shake it off, telling myself that I was just being paranoid. After all, she was my wife, and I trusted her. But as the days went by, that trust began to erode. I noticed she was more easily irritated, snapping at me over small things. I remember one night we had a small argument about dinner plans. I suggested ordering Italian, her favorite. She shot back with a roll of her eyes. "I don't want pasta, just make something for yourself." That was unusual for her, and I couldn't help but wonder if there was more going on beneath the surface. Things escalated when I inadvertently came across an email on her laptop. I had opened it, thinking it was a work-related message, but what I found made my heart sink. The subject line read, "Last night was amazing," and the body of the email was filled with flirtatious banter that made it clear she was involved with someone else. I felt like I'd been hit by a truck. My hands trembled and I had to sit down. I didn't confront her right away. Instead, I spent the next few days in a haze, replaying every moment we'd shared. I thought of the sweet times, the promises we made to each other, and the future we had envisioned. But those memories became tainted with betrayal, and the anger began to rise like bile in my throat. I felt like a fool for not seeing the signs sooner. Finally, I could no longer keep my suspicions to myself. It was a Saturday afternoon, and I knew we'd have a rare moment of quiet, just the two of us. I summoned my courage and confronted Jennifer. I told her I'd seen the email and I needed her to be honest with me. Her reaction was immediate. The color drained from her face and she stammered, "What email? What are you talking about?" Denial poured out of her like a waterfall, and she spun an elaborate story about a colleague who was going through a tough time and needed emotional support. I could hear her voice rising, the panic evident as she struggled to come up with plausible excuses. But deep down, I knew it was all just lies. I couldn't help but feel furious. The confrontation turned heated. I threw the email back at her, demanding to know who he was. Her face twisted in a way I'd never seen before, and for a moment I thought she might break down. But instead, she snapped back with, "You're being ridiculous, Mark. I can't believe you would accuse me like this." It was as if I was talking to a completely different person. The woman I married wouldn't lie to me so easily. I felt the emotional weight bearing down on me, a mix of rage and heartbreak. I couldn't process it all. I had loved her fiercely, and here she was, lying through her teeth. My heart raced and the tears welled up in my eyes, but I fought them back. I wasn't going to let her see me break. I needed to regain control. As the confrontation continued, I realized it was time to take a step back and figure out how to approach this situation. This was my life, my marriage, and I needed to be strategic about what came next. Would I fight for us, or would I plan my escape? The choice weighed heavily on me, and I didn't know which direction to turn. But one thing was clear: this was just the beginning. After that explosive confrontation, my mind was a chaotic whirlwind of emotions. I felt like I was in a fog, struggling to see the path ahead. Jennifer was still screaming at me, but her words barely registered. All I could think about was the betrayal I just uncovered. My heart raced and anger bubbled beneath the surface, but I also felt a deep sadness creeping in. I had built my life around her, and now it felt like everything was crumbling to pieces. As the evening wore on, I decided to take a walk to clear my head. I needed space. I grabbed my jacket and headed out the door, leaving Jennifer packing in the living room, still trying to defend her lies. The cool air hit my face, and I welcomed it as I strolled through our quiet neighborhood. I had to process what I had discovered, but I also needed to think about what I wanted moving forward. The streets were desolate, and the only sounds were the rustling leaves and my own footsteps. I remembered the time Jennifer and I had strolled through these same streets, hand in hand, dreaming about our future. Now, it felt surreal, like I was watching a different version of my life on a movie screen. I thought about the email I had found, the flirtation, the intimacy she shared with someone else. It was gut-wrenching. As I walked, I considered my options. Should I confront her? Again, should I gather more evidence, or should I simply walk away? The thought of leaving her felt like ripping my own heart out. I had loved her, trusted her, and built a life with her. But the truth was I couldn't stay in a marriage built on lies. When I returned home, I found Jennifer sitting on the couch, her expression a mix of anger and guilt. She had clearly been crying, and for a moment I felt a flicker of sympathy. But it quickly faded. I couldn't afford to feel sorry for her. I was the one betrayed, I was the one hurting. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steady. "I didn't mean to hurt you, Mark. You have to believe me," she said, her voice cracking. She looked vulnerable, but I couldn't let that sway me. "I want the truth, Jennifer." I crossed my arms, trying to project strength even though I felt like I was crumbling inside. She hesitated, the silence stretching between us. Finally, she sighed. "Okay, maybe I've been spending time with someone else." "It's complicated, complicated." I shot back, my patience wearing thin. "You think this is complicated? You've been cheating on me. How is that complicated? It's simple. You made a choice." Jennifer's eyes widened, and for the first time I saw a flicker of fear. "It's not like that. You don't understand," she pleaded. But I was done with her excuses. I wanted to know everything, every detail that led to her betrayal. I couldn't move forward until I had the complete picture. Through her tears, she told me about this coworker, a guy named Alex who had been friendly and supportive at work. According to her, it had started innocently enough, a few drinks after work to unwind, and then one thing led to another. But her words felt hollow. I could see the lies woven into her story. I couldn't tell if she genuinely regretted what she had done or if she was just upset about being caught. As she spoke, I felt a mix of disbelief and anger boiling over. How could she betray me like this? I had been there for her through thick and thin. I had supported her dreams and aspirations, and this was how she repaid me. The thought made my stomach churn. I wanted to scream, to throw things, but I knew that wouldn't solve anything. After a long and painful conversation, we reached a breaking point. I told her I needed to think and that I didn't know if I could forgive her. She begged me to reconsider, crying and pleading for another chance. But I felt like I was standing on a precipice, staring into the abyss below. The choice I had to make felt monumental, and I couldn't help but feel the weight of the world pressing down on my shoulders. That night I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying everything that had happened. The betrayal gnawed at me, and I felt a mix of anger, sadness, and confusion. I was married to a woman who had thrown our vows away for a fleeting thrill. My heart felt heavy, and I realized I needed to devise a plan. I had to decide how I would respond to this betrayal and what my next steps would be. In the days that followed, I started to gather my thoughts. I realized that I had two paths ahead of me. I could either try to work things out with Jennifer or consider walking away from the marriage entirely. But one thing was certain: I wouldn't allow myself to be a victim anymore. I would take control of my destiny, but first I needed to find out the extent of her infidelity. I knew that this would require a level of determination and cunning that I hadn't tapped into before. So I set my plan in motion. I would watch her closely, collect evidence, and see just how deep this betrayal ran. The game was on, and I was just getting started. With a heavy heart and a newfound resolve, I began my quiet investigation. After the confrontation with Jennifer, I knew I couldn't trust her anymore, and I needed to understand the full extent of her betrayal before making any decisions about our future. My first step was to observe her behavior more closely. I knew her work schedule, and I paid careful attention to her late nights and sudden changes in routine. I began to notice patterns. On Tuesdays and Thursdays, she would leave for work early, claiming she had meetings. But as I dug deeper, I realized she was consistently coming home later than expected, often with the same excuses. I decided to do some digging. I didn't want to confront her again without solid evidence that would force the truth out of her. One evening, while she was in the shower, I took the opportunity to look at her phone. I knew it was a breach of trust, but I felt justified. I needed answers. As I scrolled through her messages, I could feel my heart race. There were a few texts from Alex, the coworker she had mentioned, but they seemed innocuous at first, just work-related banter. But then I found something that made my stomach drop. There it was, a text that read, "Can't stop thinking about last night. We should do it again sometime." My heart sank as I realized just how deep this affair ran. They had been physical. I was filled with a mix of anger and betrayal, and I felt dizzy as I tried to process what I was reading. I took screenshots of the messages, knowing I would need something to confront her with later. When Jennifer emerged from the shower, a towel wrapped around her, she seemed relaxed, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. I tried to act normal, but I could feel my heart racing, and the tension in the room was palpable. I needed to keep my composure, to maintain control until I had a complete understanding of what was really happening. The following days were torturous. I felt like I was living a double life, pretending everything was fine while secretly gathering evidence of her affair. I followed her on one of her late nights out, keeping my distance. I parked a few blocks from the bar where she had gone, my heart pounding in my chest as I watched her enter. I felt like a private investigator hiding in the shadows. Inside, I could see her laughing, her body leaning in close to Alex. The sight was unbearable. They were flirting, their chemistry palpable even from a distance. This was the man she had turned to, the one who had taken her heart and body away from me. I felt sick. I wanted to barge in and confront them both, but I knew I had to keep my cool. I had to gather more evidence to ensure that when the time came to confront her, I would have the upper hand. As the night wore on, I watched them leave together. It was like a dagger to my heart, and I felt a wave of emotions crash over me: betrayal, anger, sadness, and a simmering desire for revenge. They walked to his car, their heads bent close together as they laughed. I couldn't take it anymore, so I turned away and drove home, my hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. When Jennifer returned home, it was late, and she pretended not to notice my silence. I played it cool, acting as if I had just been watching TV, but inside I was a mess. I was angry at her, angry at Alex, and most of all, I was furious with myself for not seeing this sooner. The confrontation was looming, but I needed to bide my time. I wanted her to feel the weight of her actions, to understand the depth of the pain she had caused. I kept gathering evidence, collecting texts, and tracking her movements. Each piece of information stoked the fire of my anger and the desire for revenge. A week later, I decided it was time to confront her again. I had gathered enough evidence to expose her lies, but I wanted to wait for a moment that would maximize the impact. It was a Saturday, and we had plans to meet some friends for dinner. Jennifer seemed in particularly good spirits, oblivious to the storm brewing in my mind. As we prepared for the evening, I felt a sense of calm wash over me. The moment of truth was approaching, and I was ready. I made a mental note to keep my emotions in check during dinner. I didn't want to ruin the evening for our friends, but I also couldn't let Jennifer escape my questions any longer. When we arrived at the restaurant, I was surprised by how relaxed I felt. We engaged in small talk with our friends, but my mind was elsewhere, focused on the confrontation that awaited us at home. After dinner, as we walked back to the car, I couldn't hold back any longer. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steady. Her demeanor shifted instantly, a flicker of concern crossing her face. "Talk about what?" she asked, her tone defensive. "About Alex," I replied, watching her expression carefully. She froze for a moment, her eyes widening. I could see her mind racing as she tried to compose herself. "What about him?" she stammered, but I could sense the fear behind her facade. "Let's get home first," I said, my heart pounding with anticipation. I could feel the tension building between us, and I knew the moment of truth was approaching. This time I wouldn't let her deny or deflect. I had the evidence, and I was ready to lay it all out on the table. I wanted her to see the impact of her actions, to realize the pain she had caused. As we drove home, the silence was deafening. My mind was racing, and I could sense the storm brewing inside her too. She knew something was coming, and the tension crackled in the air. Little did she know, this was just the beginning of a painful reckoning. When we got home, the tension felt almost palpable. I opened the door and stepped inside, followed closely by Jennifer. The familiarity of our living room, the place we had shared so many laughs and quiet moments, suddenly felt foreign. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for what was about to happen. "Mark, can we just talk about this?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly as I motioned for her to sit down. "I'm scared, scared." I shot back, anger rising in my chest. "You're scared? You don't get to be scared, Jennifer. You're the one who's been lying to me." I could feel the adrenaline coursing through my veins, and I wanted to shout to unleash the storm of emotions that had been building for weeks. "Please, let's just talk," she pleaded, her eyes darting around the room. Her facade was slipping, and I could see the fear in her eyes. I sat down across from her, grabbing my laptop from the coffee table. It felt like a weapon in my hands as I clicked through the screenshots I had saved. "Let's talk," I said, my voice colder than I intended. "Let's talk about these texts." I pulled up the first message from Alex, the one that had shattered my world. "Can't stop thinking about last night. We should do it again sometime." I held the laptop in front of her, watching as her face fell. She opened and closed her mouth, searching for words. "Mark, I can explain." "There's nothing to explain," I said, cutting her off. "You've been cheating on me, plain and simple. This isn't complicated, Jennifer. You made a choice to betray me, to betray our marriage." "I know," she cried, tears welling in her eyes. "I messed up. It was a mistake. I didn't mean for it to go this far." "But it did go this far, didn't it?" I asked, my voice steady but filled with hurt. "You tore apart everything we built together for some excitement. Did you even think about me, about us?" "I was lonely," she exclaimed, her voice rising in desperation. "You've been so caught up in work, and I felt abandoned." The accusation stung. I had worked hard to provide for us, to ensure that we had a good life. "So your solution was to sleep with another man?" I shot back. "That's your excuse. You didn't talk to me, you didn't try to reach out. You just decided to go off and find comfort in someone else's arms." She hung her head, sobs shaking her shoulders. "I thought I could handle it. I didn't realize how deep it would go." I leaned back in my chair, my heart heavy as I watched her crumble before me. "And what about the future, Jennifer? What about us? Did you ever consider that you were risking everything? Did you think for one moment about the repercussions of your actions?" "I never wanted to hurt you," she admitted, her voice muffled by tears. "I just kept telling myself it was just a fling, that it didn't mean anything." I shook my head, feeling a mix of anger and sadness. "But it did mean something. It meant you were willing to throw away our relationship for something that was never real. You chose him over me." Jennifer looked up, her eyes pleading. "I'm so sorry, Mark. I'll do anything to fix this. I'll go to therapy, I'll cut him off, whatever it takes. Just please don't leave me." The desperation in her voice tugged at my heartstrings, but I felt a wall rising inside me. "How can I trust you again?" I asked. "You've shattered my trust completely. You've lied to me for months." I know," her voice breaking. "But please, I'll prove to you that I can be better. I can fix this. I love you." The words hung in the air like a heavy weight. Did she truly love me, or was it just fear of losing the life she had built? I wanted to believe her, but the betrayal was still so raw. "Love isn't just a word, Jennifer. It's a commitment, and you threw that away." I took a deep breath, trying to find clarity amidst the chaos. "I need time to think about this. I can't make a decision right now." "Please, Mark," she begged, her voice trembling. "I'll change, I swear. Just give me another chance." I stared at her, my heart breaking for the woman I once knew, but the reality was this was a different person sitting in front of me now. The woman I loved had made a choice that shattered our life together. "I don't know if I can forgive you," I finally said, my voice heavy with emotion. "I need to figure out what's best for me." She nodded, her expression a mix of fear and despair. "I understand." The silence hung thick between us, suffocating. We sat there, two people who once shared a life, now separated by a chasm of betrayal and hurt. I felt exhausted, emotionally drained from the confrontation. I stood up, needing space to breathe and think. I had a decision to make. Would I fight for this marriage, or let the waves of betrayal crash down and wash it all away? As I walked to the bedroom, I felt a sense of conflict raging inside me. I knew I had to find clarity, but the path ahead felt uncertain. Would I be able to forgive her and rebuild what we once had, Or was it time to finally let go? I lay awake that night, the darkness closing in around me, pondering the future. The weight of betrayal pressed heavily on my heart, and the question lingered: could love survive after such a devastating blow? The days that followed felt like an emotional roller coaster. I oscillated between anger, sadness, and moments of fleeting hope. Jennifer was doing everything she could to prove her remorse. She was attentive. She followed through on her promise to cut off contact with Alex, and she even suggested couples therapy. But despite her efforts, I felt like I was living in a surreal nightmare. The trust that had once anchored our relationship was now a fragile ghost, haunting every interaction. I found myself constantly scrutinizing her behavior, replaying our conversations in my head, examining every word and gesture for hidden meanings. I noticed that she seemed genuinely committed to fixing things, but a part of me still felt lost. Could I really trust her again after everything? One afternoon, I decided it was time to confront the bigger question: could I forgive her? I had been holding on to my anger, using it as a shield against the pain. But deep down, I knew that I couldn't continue living this way. I needed to find a way to let go of the hurt if I wanted to move forward, either together or apart. I asked Jennifer to meet me at a small cafe where we had shared many happy moments before everything had unraveled. As we sat down, I noticed the nervousness in her eyes. She fidgeted with her hands, and I could see the worry etched on her face. "Thank you for coming," I began, my voice steady. "I wanted to talk about where we go from here." "I'm willing to do whatever it takes, Mark," she replied, her voice filled with sincerity. "I want to make this work." I took a deep breath, weighing my words carefully. "I've been thinking a lot about what happened. It's been hard for both of us, and I can see you're genuinely trying to change. But I need to be honest about where I am emotionally." "What do you mean?" she asked, her brows furrowing in concern. "I'm struggling," I admitted. "Part of me wants to forgive you. I want to believe that we can rebuild our love and trust. But another part of me feels so betrayed that I don't know if I can ever get back to where we were." Jennifer nodded, her eyes glistening with tears. "I understand. I know I've caused you so much pain, and I can't take that back. But I want to prove to you that I can be the partner you deserve. I've learned my lesson, Mark. I'll never let it happen again." I looked down at my coffee, swirling it around as I thought about her words. "I just don't think I can forget what you did. It's like a scar now. It'll always be there, and I don't know if we can heal from it." "Maybe it doesn't have to be about forgetting," she suggested gently. "Maybe it's about rebuilding trust step by step. I'm willing to put in the work. I know I messed up, but we have something special. I don't want to lose it." Her words resonated with me, but the skepticism lingered. "What if I can't get past this? What if I keep bringing it up, or what if I can't let go of my anger?" "Then we'll work through it together," she said, her voice firm yet compassionate. "I'm committed to making this right. Just please give me a chance." I felt a pang of contradictory emotions. Part of me wanted to keep her at arm's length to guard my heart, but another part wanted to reach out and reclaim what we had lost. "I need time, Jennifer. I need to figure out if I can truly forgive you," I said finally. "I can be patient," she replied, her expression softening. "I'll do whatever it takes to show you that I'm serious about us." As we left the cafe, I felt a flicker of hope for the first time since the revelation of her affair. It was a small spark, but it was there. I knew it wouldn't be easy, but perhaps there was a way forward. Maybe we could rebuild our relationship, brick by brick. In the weeks that followed, we began attending couples therapy. It was a tough process, filled with raw emotions and difficult conversations. We talked about the reasons for Jennifer's infidelity, her feelings of loneliness, and the ways we had both contributed to the disconnect in our marriage. At times, I felt overwhelmed by the pain of betrayal, but I also recognized that we were both learning from this experience. I started to see glimpses of the woman I had fallen in love with, the one who was willing to do the hard work to repair our bond. But just as I began to feel optimistic, a new challenge arose. One evening, I received a text from an unknown number. My heart sank as I opened it, and the message made my blood run cold. "I hope you know she's still seeing Alex." My hands shook as I read the words, and I could feel the ground shifting beneath me. This was the last thing I needed. I knew I had to confront Jennifer again, but this time it felt different. I was no longer just a husband seeking answers. I was a man determined to protect my heart. As I prepared for what was about to unfold, I felt a mix of anger and fear. Was it really possible that she hadn't completely severed ties with Alex? Had I been fooling myself into thinking we could heal? I needed to find out the truth, and I was ready to take a stand for myself once and for all. When Jennifer returned home, I could feel the tension in the air. I took a deep breath and called her into the living room, my heart racing. "We need to talk," I said, my voice steady but firm. She looked at me, curiosity and concern etched on her face. "About what?" "About the text I received tonight," I replied, watching her expression shift from confusion to apprehension. Immediately I could see the fear in her eyes, and I knew this conversation was about to take a turn. I was ready to uncover the truth, no matter how painful it might be. As Jennifer stepped into the living room, the atmosphere felt thick with unspoken tension. Her eyes widened as I mentioned the text, and I could sense her internal struggle. "What text?" she asked, though the tremor in her voice betrayed her. I pulled out my phone, the message still glaring at me like an accusation. "This one," I said, showing it to her. "I hope you know she's still seeing Alex." "What does that mean, Jennifer?" Her face went pale, and for a moment she seemed frozen, processing the gravity of my words. "I can explain," she said, her voice trembling. "Explain what? Help me understand how I can still be sitting here questioning your loyalty after everything we've been through." The anger bubbled to the surface again, fueled by the betrayal I had already endured. "Mark, please listen," she pleaded, tears gathering in her eyes. "I told you I cut him off. I swear I did. But I think he might be trying to manipulate me. He knows I'm trying to make things right with you, and he's reaching out just to mess with my head." "Manipulate you? Is that what you call it?" I shot back, my voice rising. "This isn't just about him trying to mess with you, Jennifer. This is about you needing to be honest with me. If you're still in contact with him, then you haven't really committed to fixing this." She swallowed hard, her expression crumpling as the weight of my words sunk in. "I wasn't going to tell you. I didn't want to hurt you more. I thought it was over. Did you think I'd be okay with half-truths, that I'd be okay with you dancing around the truth again?" I felt the hurt bubbling up in me. "I'm trying to give you a chance, but you keep making it impossible." "I'll cut him off for good," she said, her voice pleading. "I'll block him, I promise. Just please don't let this ruin what we're trying to build." "Why should I trust you?" I asked, my heart pounding. "You've already broken that trust once. How do I know you won't just go back to him when we're not looking?" "I don't want him, I want you," she exclaimed, desperation in her voice. "I made a huge mistake, and I'm so sorry. I'm fighting for us, Mark. Please don't let this define us." The desperation in her tone tugged at my heart, but the sting of betrayal was still fresh. I felt torn. Part of me wanted to believe her, to trust that she was genuinely remorseful and willing to do the work to rebuild. But another part, the part that had been hurt so deeply, didn't want to let my guard down. I stood there, grappling with the pain and uncertainty, but something shifted in me as I watched her. Her tears were real, and while doubt still loomed, the sincerity in her eyes began to crack through my defenses. "Okay," I said, my voice low. "But this is your last chance. If you want to make this work, you need to prove yourself to me. I will not live in a constant state of fear and doubt." "I will, I promise," she said, her voice breaking. "I'll do whatever it takes. You have my word." "Then let's start by addressing the present," I said, my tone firm but softer. "You need to block Alex right now, and I want to see you do it. No more games, no more secrets. If we're going to try this, we do it transparently." She nodded quickly, pulling out her phone as her hands trembled. "I will," she said. With a few taps, I watched her block Alex's number, and something inside me felt a flicker of hope. It was a small step, but it was something tangible. As I watched her, I realized that rebuilding trust would take time, and I would have to be willing to put in the effort myself. This wouldn't be easy, but perhaps it was worth a shot. I knew that love was a choice, a commitment to overcome the hurt and start anew. In the days that followed, we began to communicate more openly, sharing our feelings and fears. I could see Jennifer trying to be more present, and I made an effort to listen to her, to understand where she was coming from. It didn't erase the pain, but it was a start. We attended therapy sessions, delving into the root causes of our issues and working on rebuilding our connection. There were emotional days filled with tears, but little by little, I started to feel the walls I had built around my heart begin to crumble. Occasionally, doubts would creep back in, and I'd wrestle with the fear of being hurt again. But I reminded myself that healing takes time, and it's a journey we were both on together. I had to choose to believe in our potential, even if it felt scary. As the weeks passed, I found myself remembering the love we had shared, the laughter and the joy that had once filled our lives. I began to see glimpses of hope, the way she smiled when I walked into a room, the way she made an effort to reconnect with my family and friends. I realized that while the road to healing was long and fraught with challenges, I was willing to walk it together with her. Trust could be rebuilt, but it would require mutual dedication and vulnerability. And for now, that was enough. As I reflected on this journey, I learned that love isn't just about the highs. It's also about navigating the lows together. It's about choosing each other, even when things get messy and complicated. I didn't know where our path would lead, but I knew that we were both committed to finding our way back to each other, one step at a time. And perhaps that was the most important lesson of all, that love can endure even in the face of betrayal if both partners are willing to fight for it.